Howdy y'all, you got the Bulldog on the channel. What we got here is a 13 Chevy Cruze. I think it's a 13, close enough. Got the little turbocharged Ecotec in it. And customer complaint is that you're driving along, everything's good, and then all of a sudden it'll just spike the temperature. Well, I've got a working theory, but before we even start doing this, since it's been spiking the temperature, we're going to check the head gasket and make sure it's not blown or we got a cracked head or something along those lines. Car's all cooled off right now. That's so that we don't, boil or anything like that. Sometimes you want to check he's warm, but not this time. I'm just doing a precautionary to make sure that we're not, pissing in the wind here. Here's our combustion gas tester. What it is this deal here, and you can use either one of these. I just keep it in the double stack and I use the top one. That gives me an extra tube down here in case it creates a vacuum and tries to pull stuff down in there. Open up the top, and this is a special fluid. It's blue. It changes yellow in the presence of combustion gases. And since there's not supposed to be any combustion gases in the coolant system, if this turns, we have big problems. There's a line right here that you fill it up to. It has a pump bulb that you stick on top. It has a one-way valve in it, and you can suck air up through it, but we don't usually use that. I mean, if there's combustion gas in there, it creates pressure and it blows bubbles through it. Blowing bubbles is fairly normal while it heats up. We don't have to worry too much about that. We worry if it changes color, because that's what people used to say. You got a blown head gasket if it's blowing bubbles in the cooling system. Well, not necessarily. If it bubbles and turns color, that's bad. Now, they have cheap ones that are available in the parts stores and everything. I have found that their fluid doesn't work. I've stuck it up against the exhaust system and sucked air through it, and it still wouldn't change it color. So I buy the Snap-on stuff. Well, this is actually Blue Point, but same thing. You just set that on your radiator cap where it goes, on your degas bottle, on your radiator, and fire up the car. Now, one thing to note is if you put pressure on the car, if you put it in gear, hold the brake, and give it some gas, it will increase the combustion pressure and it will speed up this process a little bit. But don't go too hog wild. I can see this from the driver's seat, so I don't need any help while doing this. Some of them you need two people, but this fits pretty tight, and being in front of me, I can see this, so we can do it by ourselves. Okay, we're going to pull some air through it. These newer cars that have electronic throttles, you can't load them up by a certain amount. The computer won't let you. But let out of it, I was putting it in neutral and revving it up a little bit, because if you just sit there and hold it like that, you'll burn up the transmission. So have some common sense. We're looking good on this thing. This is more just peace of mind on my part, because the last thing we want to do is put a bunch of money into something and then find out it's blown up later. I've already got a working theory on it. I've already looked at it, and it is a good lesson in a visual inspection and using your head. more than computers and sensors and all that kind of stuff. Let me show you. And when we were looking this over, I did feel that this hose is awfully soft. This one here is not great either. This is not the car that I did a video about a while back. I thought it was when I first saw it. That's why I was worried, but no, this is not the one that I worked on. It just looks identical to it, and it's got the identical motor and some of the same problems. But here, this hose right through here, there is a seam that feels way too soft for this hose. And then you get over here, and there is a spot. When you depress this, you can tell there's something wrong with the inside of the hose. Honestly, I believe that the inside of that hose is delaminating from itself, and it will suck shut internally and plug it up, and that's what spikes the temperature. So I'm going to drain the system and I'm going to pull that hose off. First thing I wanted to do was make sure that we weren't, you know, administering medicine to the dead. Now we're going to do an inspection. I got a picture of the inside of it. All those wrinkles, that's not junk, that's rubber. It's built up in there. Hose is just coming apart internally. I didn't want to cut the hose apart yet. I wanted to find out what was going on. So I had a camera stick down in there. These things are nice. Okay, so my boss is going to take his car out and drive it. I got it put back together and filled up, left it running. It ramped up the temperature nice and steady. So he's going to drive it and make sure everything's good. I'm going to cut open this hose and show you what we find inside. It's not good. Now right here is where that real soft spot is. And when I stuck that camera down in there, I saw the interior of the hose all wrinkled up. Looks like your fingers after you've been submerged in water too long. It's all soft. I don't see a delamination. Boy, it just, yeah, that's all. It wasn't junk. It's just deteriorated rubber. Now, what the problem it was having is it said the code was for a coolant flow restriction. I put a thermostat in it here last year and it was good. So if it still has that problem, here, look at this. This is what I was feeling. There we go. I was feeling those cracks when I pushed in on the rubber. Look at the deterioration inside this hose. That's the really bad spot that I felt. And the rubber is just coming apart. What I felt like was happening was the insides of this was delaminating off of it and blocking the coolant flow. This spot right here is pretty bad. That's all rubber. That might get in there and clog up stuff. I looked into the radiator and into the neck and I did not see anything, but still. Just because your hoses look good on the outside, that does not mean that they're good to go. It's a bad deal. Okay, that last clip was nearly a week ago that I filmed that. Seasonal sickness strikes again.
My granddaughter came down with it first, and I've got it now, but I'm getting over it. Where I left off was we'd cut open that upper hose. Actually, it is the suction side hose, but it's on the top because it's a reverse flow system. But I cut it open and showed you what it looked like inside of it. We drove it, and there was no improvement on the temperature of the system, and I kind of figured that since I saw the inside of it and I saw that it was not delaminating and shutting off the flow. When we double checked everything, I remember, and this is why I can't depend on memory, because you see so many vehicles come through here. I worked on an identical Chevy Cruze, same color and everything, and I did some different things to it. This one we had in, I replaced the cooling fan assembly, and it shows up on the deal as temperature control. So when I looked at the ticket, I just assumed thermostat because I was starting to get sick at that time. Brain wasn't working. Well, two things. Thermostat was never replaced to begin with, because that was a different one that I was working on that I was remembering. And this one, we replaced this fan because the low side fan never worked. And now that the low side fan doesn't work again. So we have that warranted. I have just gotten through. I didn't film myself because I kind of stumbling around anyway. Thermostat is right here. It is not particularly difficult to do, but we get it from the dealer because we get the entire assembly. The thermostat is actually an insert inside of that, and it's got inverse Torx, 3 inverse Torx bolts. Really not all that hard to do. A little bit difficult to get to the bolts, but not terrible. Here's this assembly, and you can see this is why you don't just replace thermostats anymore. It's an insert into this plastic housing. Plastic likes to crack, but we'll try to get a close-up view. Is that rubber seal in there? See how it's starting to wrinkle? It's doing the same thing that the inside of that hose was doing. We are going to advise the customer to do some further work if they choose to keep it. Because what's going on is just like I did on that other car, the oil cooler and oil filter adapter assembly behind here is starting to leak. It is leaking down on the outside, and since there's coolant inside of it, I think it is pushing a little bit of oil into the coolant. I'm not seeing it on top of the antifreeze, but that's what causes the hoses to get soft and deteriorate like that. It's also causing the same thing on the thermostat. So it is an eventuality, but I think that they were talking about they were going to sell the car anyway, and they wanted to make sure that it was right before they sold it. But how right does it need to be? Everything needs to be functional. They don't want to sell a pig in a poke, something that's going to overheat and blow up right away. So they could sell it to them with the expectation that it needs that other thing done at a later date. We'll see. I'm sorry I didn't show you the rest of what I did. I actually used old footage for my last video. So, but this is the nature of this business. You don't make any money if you're not working. It doesn't make it fun though. Own your own business. You'll be your own boss. There are no sick days. It doesn't, they don't happen. So, I'm gonna pour the coolant back in this. We're gonna test drive it and make sure that it's good. That was a few days ago. We did get the car taken care of, and it's back with the customer. They were happy with the work that we did and understanding of the situation. We start to get that a big shop, you know, they kind of tend to run together, and we'll confuse what we've worked on and what we haven't. That's why it's really good to have a computer operating system that will keep track of it for us. We just put that in the VIN number and we know what we did, and then we'll remember later maybe. But customer's happy, they got it back, they're driving it. I don't know how long they'll own it for, but they just wanted to make sure that it wasn't gonna
what they weren't going to sell somebody a pig in the poke if they decide to sell it. So like, comment, subscribe, hit your little bell notification down there, share it all around. We'll talk to you later.